those poor brothers. In the fifth and final episode of the Gripen build, we are going to paint, weather and finish this scale model. First, let's clean the plastic with isopropyl alcohol. For primer, I am using Mr. Surfacer 1500. Most of the tools, materials and paints I use you can find in the description. With the primer dry, I will apply a subtle pre-shading with grey paint, a little bit darker than the color that is going to cover it. For the area underneath the engine, I'll add brown color marbling effect. The lower camo color is corresponding to FS36375, and in my case this is Mr. Hobby H308. I will apply the paint very diluted and in many thin layers so I can control the way that opacity builds up. Now we have subtle but still visible tonal variation. To mask off the lower camo color, first I cut out thin strips of Tamiya masking tape and outline the demarcation. For curves, I use strips cut out of 3M fine line vinyl tape. For larger areas, I use squares of Tamiya masking tape. Finally, I seal the edges with masking liquid to prevent lifting. Alright, with everything wrapped up like that, we should have no issues. Next up, pre-shading. For the upper camo color, IPMS Stockholm site suggests Federal Standard color that is not available in any major manufacturer range. Therefore, I went and used my calibrated eyeball and picked H53 neutral grey from Mr. Hobby to be the right shade of grey. Okay, more masking coming, this time so we can paint the gear bay. Again a bit of pre-shading and then light layers of color, in this case white. I'm not going to build the white to its full strength, and later you will see why. Subscribe and click on the notification bell. Never miss a build or a tutorial. We're going to have black nose cone, so there is some more masking. A couple of panels will get corrosion control touch-ups with light grey. To protect everything done so far and get ready for decals, I will apply a gloss coat. I decided to go with high visibility scheme, so we will have some colorful markings. The nitrile gloves not only protect your model, but also provide with nice grip, so you can move your decals easier. To help the decals adhere better to the surface, I use Mr. Mark Setter. For softening, I use a gamma hypersaw. Instead of using the decals, I decided to paint the formation plates with paintbrush. I also highlighted the frames. I painted the details in the gear base and the landing gear in black. This is going to be a base layer for the detail painting that we are going to do later. This is how the airframe looks at this point. Note how subtle yet effective the pre-shading is. To start the weathering process, first I faded the decals because they are very bright and new. To do this, I used very diluted white paint. I also faded the centers of some panels. On the underside, first I used highly diluted brown paint. In this area, most of the grime and dirt would collect, plus it would be most affected by the heat from the engine. I added some black in the brown filter and emphasized some areas on the bottom of the aircraft as well as some panel lines. Using pure black filter, I added effects to the moving parts. I use the same filter to build up exhaust stains. I think that we are good so far. After I was done with the effects, I applied another coat of clear varnish. While the clear coat is drying, let's do the jet nozzle. First I painted the inside with yellowish white. Then I added a drop of black in the mix and painted the edges of the petals. On the outside of the nozzle I applied polished aluminium. To add some detail I masked two rings using stripes cut out of 3M vinyl tape. Then I applied dark aluminium paint. I did some more masking and applied polished aluminium once more. I wanted to get warmer tone, so I decided to do a very light layer of duraluminum. However, I underestimated the covering properties of this paint and diminished what I have done so far. I decided to move on with what I have and added some oil paints where the petals overlap in their movement. The clear coat is now dry, so let's do the panel line wash. I'm going to use a mix of sky grey and deep grey. If you have a good clear coat, removing the excess wash is very easy. Moving on the gear bay, here is why I left the white not so white. Just so I can add highlights. For more definition, I used mechanical pencil with B hardness leads. I think these techniques come from the Spanish school. Most of the pipes in the gear bay are unpainted metal, so I'm going to use silver pencil for them. The wire loom appears to be dark green color. I added some highlights as well. The pressurized air container seems to be made of Kevlar composite, so I painted it yellow. For the weave texture, I used dark sand from Vallejo. The larger pipe that runs across the gear bay was painted in white. To create a hose joint, first I applied black paint. Then, with silver, I added a strip in the middle of the black. I added some streaking with oil paint. Finally, I applied a flat coat. I love that moment when it's time to remove the masks. Now it's time to do the final assembly. Most of the parts I'm going to attach using super glue. A gallery of the finished model will be available on my website mmscalemodels.com. I hope you have enjoyed the series. To watch more of my builds, click on the thumbnails or check the links in the description. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy modeling!